And I want to welcome you to beautiful downtown Miami, hot Miami. And I'm showing up as an investor for the last 30 years, consulting businesses for as many years, coaching businesses for the last 15 years. And I started a mentoring program about 5 years ago. And I'm currently running a 21-day business challenge, $1 million business challenge for 21 days. So today's the 18th day. And I've got a lot of questions for myself on this. What can I glean from this? And I think I have the seeds of a great idea that came out of this. And I think the biggest idea is that from a team perspective, group perspective, there's a way that we can reach a collective flow to reach an objective. So here's the fun part. The fun part is if you can get a group or a team of people in a flow state, going in the same direction at the fast speed with the same goal, synchronicity, everything's going right, they always win. They always beat a team of highly performing individuals. Always. Take any team sport, take any organization. One of the examples that I have is one of my clients who's in an environment, and over a period of 2 years, being able to coach her to get to a high level of excellence of communications, networking, empowering, and being able to transmit that to her team members, and now elevated that team over 30 people, 36 people. And starting with a smaller team, but elevating that has become an exemplary team for the whole corporation, the whole organization. And I wondered about that. How is that possible? And now the rest of the organization, because they're all comprised of different teams, are looking at that and trying to figure out how did they get to that level and how do they start to duplicate some areas without having the benefit of the coaching that she's had. So it's very interesting how that not only shows up within the organization, is an example, and people start to modify, copy that from afar instead of going directly and asking, how do you actually do that? What is the recipe? What is the remedy? How do you actually go faster? So from a personal standpoint, from an objective standpoint, I'm observing that this is an interesting phenomena, and I'm very much a student. I'm observing, and I'm wondering, how is this possible? I think if we could agree on a definition, and I think we get individual flow, and I think from what Susan said, individual flow is somebody that's really achieving what they want to do effortlessly, seamlessly, timeless, with a high level of motivation, and they reach it over and over and over again until the challenge is too high. Then, of course, they either scale back or they get better skills and they continue on the flow path, continuously improving moment to moment to moment. So taking that to a team level, it's having more than two people doing the same thing. Seamlessly, effortless, timeless, with high level of motivation, getting to flow, getting to where they want to be over and over and over until they can't. There's a higher challenge, or they need to increase their skills. So it's a level of skills tension versus challenge tension, which is what we have taught us. And so flow is really that as a definition. And I call it microflow, the individual being in a microflow and the team or group being in a macroflow. That's a different perspective than what the speakers are talking about. What they're talking is putting roles. Here's 9 roles, and you fit into this role, and you're either thinking or acting, or you're a person. Well, we're all people. Come on. We're having different experiences coming in as a group. So she puts them in roles, which I think is totally different and confusing. Probably right for her, confuses me. What makes it easier for me to understand is to say, okay, what are the skills, or what is it, the triggers, as Mikhail has put it? I call it signals. What are the triggers or signals to get you into flow? And from a team perspective, and actually, you can think of it as an individual communications. Well, we can have self-communications, but in the flow state, we have great group communications. We are listening to each other in a group setting. We have individual and shared risks. And so all of those things that we can think of signals individually, we could apply it to a group or team setting, just more encompassing. So if we can communicate, we can listen to each other, we can understand what our strengths are and what the skills that we have and also the challenges, and we're going forward, creativity happens. Learning happens. Motivation happens, and ultimately flow. Those are the key components of being in a flow state. And so you do that over and over again until you hit a bigger challenge so the challenge is always good until it's not. If it's too big of a challenge, lower the challenge or get better skill sets. That's the model. And so that's the perspective I look at it, which makes it very easy and simple for me to understand it and communicate it. Because if I start putting in, here's the role, here's this, and then all of a sudden, there's only 9 roles. Could there be 10? Could there be 100 roles? All of a sudden, very, very confusing. It's a lot easier for me to think about signals. Are we listening? That's a signal. Are we communicating? Do we always say yes and? That's cooperation. How do we prepare? What are our stories? So what I've started to do is collect signals. And just like any good recipe, then we could just pick the right signals that we need for the moment and test on the results. Are we getting the results? Are we closer to that? And if we're not close to it, do we need to enhance our skills or lower our challenges? If we're close to that, good, celebrate. What's the next step going forward? A metaphor, if you will, of ducks in the air or birds that are flying in synchronicity. I always wonder, how do they do that? And from another speaker that I heard is, we as a team need to go as fast as we can in the same direction and don't hit each other. And I thought, I like that analogy. So I look at birds, they do that. I don't think I've ever seen a bird hit each other when they're flying in formation, but I do see people hit each other. They go into out of flow. They're crashing into each other. The key when it's in flow is go in the direction as fast as you can, together as close as you can without hitting each other. That for me is a very interesting metaphor and symbol for me to look at flow. And here's the steps, the models that happen. We all, as human beings, get into flow state. Naturally, as individually, we have our flow states where we manage it. And then we bring it into, and I call that a micro flow. We get very good, or if we're not, we get better and better and continue to do that. In a group or team environment, I call it a macro flow because it's a higher level and we're coming together, but we bring all our different skills together, but we still need to learn how to flow together as a team. And that's where the synchronicity happens, the communications, the direction, the going in the same direction as fast as you can without bumping into each other. And the third level that I'm observing is meta flow. And meta flow is a higher level, but it's a group of team flows, a group of macro flows. From the example that I gave about the organization, the individual going to a team and being a role model for the entire organization, they're trying to duplicate that. So there's 3 different levels, but the ones that I've been able to identify the skill sets, the signals, the triggers is individual and or group. And there's a differentiator to that. And so I'm starting enumerating a lot more from different speakers that I've heard, different people beside Mikhail. There's another one, Stephen Cutler, who's done that. He identified 17 signals. He calls them triggers. And I thought, 17, why 17? Could there be more? And apparently there is more. And so now that's starting to expand. So the thinking I'm having is that now I can pick and choose in a group environment, which signals do I need for that particular moment in that time to get us to the higher level of flow. For the individual, I do that with myself. I go through my list of signals and I go, well, which tools do I need now? That makes it a lot easier in my mind to be able to approach it. And if I hit the flow state, then I did well, and I repeat until I can't. Maybe the challenge gets higher. And so I adjust. But by collecting these tools makes it a lot easier for me to address the situation. So I am experimenting. I am learning. I'm very much in that path. But I'm starting to observe that this is something that is overlooked, but not so much overlooked, because we as spectators, as participants, as human beings, we crave flow. It's a $4 trillion industry. We crave it. We may not be in that flow, but I can tell you personally that I pay money to go see great artists, musicians, actors, sports players, just to watch them, because I, at some level, would love to be able to have that kind of flow. And I know in some level that I don't have the time or practice to be able to put that into that particular field, but I have a narrower field that I can focus in, which may be coaching. I have a sport. I have my personal life. So there are some flow states where I really want to grow. But that's a bit of my observation: the macro flow, the and the meta flow. Oh, the diversity brings the best of us. The key is, how do we elevate those people that can't or won't talk in the situation or are impacted, either for different reasons, either language or culture or practice, elevating those people so that they have a voice. So it is a challenge as a coach to be able to do that. And the tools that you use, the signals that you use, these are just tools to be able to elevate that whole group and team so that they are going in the same direction as fast as they can without bumping into each other. And I'm thinking, true, in corporate America, they don't think of flow, but they admire flow. We all admire. It's a $4 trillion industry globally out of 20 trillion or so that's out there. That we as coaches, our obligation is to get them to a flow state individually, team, or organization. But they don't ask for that. They say, give me short term, and we're thinking longer term. So it's our obligation to be able to learn the skill sets, and whatever nomenclature, whatever language you bring to it, it's still listening, it's still communicating, it's still synchronicity, it's still going in the same direction as fast as we can without bumping each other.